Hi, it's Mike. I'm the sewing salesman from QT Fabrics, and I learned how to sew from talking to my quilt shops that I sell in the salon. And today I'm going to show you how to make a quilt sandwich. They always tell you before you're going to quilt a quilt to make a quilt sandwich, but nobody's ever shown you how to do it. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I travel a lot, so today I'm in a hotel room, and I'm going to show you how to do it on a bed, but you can also do it on a floor, and I'll tell you how to do that as we go along. So let's get started. So to make a quilt sandwich, the first layer you need is the backing. And I use wide back because it's a lot simpler and you don't have to sew two pieces together. This is our ombre scroll wide back from QT Fabrics, available at your local quilt shop in many colors or online. So the first thing you do is find the right side. So that's the right side and that's the wrong side. And you put it wrong side up, just like it's going to be when it's a quilt. And you lay it out on the mattress, just like you're making the bed, but it's wrong side up. And you get it nice and smooth. Now the important thing is you want to make sure this stays in place as you put the other layers. So if you're making it on a bed, I use pins and I'll pin it down to the mattress. So I'm just sticking some pins right into the mattress at the corners and the edges. If you're doing this at home on the floor, you just tape it down to the floor with some blue painter's tape. You can do it on linoleum floor, wood floor, any hard surface that you can clean with soap and water. You can make a quilt sandwich on the floor, but let me tell you, it's a lot harder bending over and it's hard on your knees. So anyway, that's the first layer down. The next layer is the batting. Now the batting has two sides. One side is kind of bumpy and has these little nubbies on it. There you can kind of see. And the other side is kind of dimply and has little holes on it. When they make this batting, there's needles that go down and punch through to hold all the fibers together. And so if you talk to Allison at Aunt Nell's quilt shop in Pineville, Louisiana, there's something about pimples and dimples, some saying she has to remember which way goes up. But the way that goes up is the way it was made. So you want the holes to go the same way as when they needle punched it in the factory. So the little bumpy parts that are sticking out because of the way they put the needle through, that's what goes down on the bottom. And the little dimply part goes up on the top. So I'm going to put this layer on. Okay, so I got that layer on nice and smooth. To tell you the truth, I've looked and I'm not even sure I have it the right way up or down. And you know what? It doesn't even really matter. There's some tiny little thing about the fibers and something. So I've made them wrong a million times and you can never tell. But anyway, the important thing is that it's smooth and laid out nice and smooth. And next I'm going to put the top on. So the next thing we do is put on the quilt top. So this is a quilt top that I made yesterday. Do you like this quilt? It's the Bohemian Rhapsody fabric from QT Fabric, which is in stores now. And this pattern is the Aurora Nights pattern from Bound to Be Quilting, which you should be able to get at your quilt shop, or you can probably find it online at boundtobequilting.com. So now I'm going to spread this out nice and even. And because I pinned down that first layer, or if you're on the floor, tape down the first layer, the batting will hold, and so everything kind of stays where you want to put it, and it's easy to get the wrinkles out. So now it's all nice and flat, and there's no wrinkles in the top or the middle or the bottom. Also, notice how this all kind of fits? That's because before I turned the camera on, I laid this all out with the extra laying over the edge, and then I trimmed it so that you didn't have to watch me trim everything. And I was even able to trim it without cutting the sheets. I was so proud of myself. So now that I have it all laid out, I'm going to spray baste it together. being able to quilt a quilt on your domestic machine is spray basting the pieces together. If you glue the pieces together with this water soluble spray base, there's a brand in your quilt shop called 505, which is really good, or this is Spray and Bond that I got at Joann's. But you want the water soluble one so that it's easy to clean up, and the people at the hotel will just be able to wash the sheets and the extra glue will be gone. But by gluing your pieces together, you can glue them wherever you want. When you take a quilt top to the long armor, they just put the top of it in the long arm and stretch it to fit. And so, depending on how good a quilter you are, I'm not very good, it's gonna kind of maybe come out wonky and stuff because of the way they stretch it. If you're spray basting, you can move it around as much as you want, and you can get this exactly square, and you can put the pieces exactly where you want, and you can fix that little fudge spot that you screwed up and kind of make it right. You can do whatever you want by spray basting this because you're putting it where you want it to be. And then it'll stay together. The glue washes right out the first time you wash it. And so it holds together really easy and makes quilting on your domestic machine really easy. So here's how to glue it together. I pull back the top half halfway and then spray. And then if you have a friend or a roommate or somebody you really love who will do what you say, it's easier to have two people do this, but you can do it yourself. You just pull back and lay it down flat and position it just where you want it. So now this is where you can fudge it around and make sure the lines are straight, and you can lift it up and move it again. And I'm just sort of making sure all my wrinkles and everything from bad sewing are out, and I'm just kind of pushing it down where I want it to go. And if you want, you can take a square edge ruler and make sure your edges are square. This is a pretty simple quilt, so it's not too out of square. And then you do the other half. And pull back, and gently lay it down, and run around the bed. Believe me, this is a lot easier than doing it on the floor. And the best part, it's in the hotel. I don't have to wash the sheets. So now I'm just kind of making sure the lines are all pretty straight going up and down. I'm putting it exactly where I want it to be, pulling out any wrinkles there might be. And it's also kind of easier to smooth it out from the center out, but you also want to make sure the edges are straight. And then you just kind of rub it around and make sure it's glued down. And it's glued down, but if I want to pull it up and change it around, I can, but it'll stay there. Now I do the same thing, pulling back the backing, and do it halfway. So the important thing is you leave enough backing and batting to hang out the side, but not a whole lot, because you're going to quilt this on your domestic machine at home, and you don't want to have a whole lot of extra that you got to bunch up to get under the machine so you can quilt it. So I usually leave about 3 or 4 inches, and you just want to make sure that the backing isn't short and under here somewhere. It's got to be over here. So when you're done, you have the quilt on the back. Then you just go through and take out the pins. And it'll hold together until you get it under your domestic machine, and I'll show you how to quilt it in the next video in this series. So see you next time.